Welcome back, Officers Republics. Of course, Honorable Police Chief APGAINS. Another episode of APGAINS, but I'm not here. It says APGAINS, but I'm not here. Today, we are talking about when you should farm General Anakin Skywalker. I actually, to this day, surprisingly, don't get enough people questioning, new players, questioning why I refer to him as gas. We all know what it is, but I just think it's probably funny. Imagine transported back years and years and years ago where you're first entering, or you knew nothing and you just entered the game today. You go into a video, you go into a stream, and you have a great breadth and depth of Star Wars lore, and someone says gas. And you're like, what the fuck is that? So for the 6 people who have ever watched me who don't know what gas means, it's General Anakin Skywalker. There you go. I just always find it funny saying that out loud to someone who doesn't play the game but knows Star Wars, and I refer to him as gas. And they're like, who the fuck is gas? I'm like, all right. General Anakin. There we go. All right, when should you farm him? Okay, so his requirements are as follows. They're great requirements. I honestly fucking fantastic. Asajj, who cares? But now that the Night Sisters are good, eventually will be useful, kind of. But you basically just get a free General Grievous team that's going to kick ass. Whether you use it to counter Star Killer or use it to counter Sith Eternal Emperor or use it on defense or offense, it's a great flexible team. It's, to this day, one of the best teams in this game. And being a requirement for one of the other best teams in the game, especially teams that you can get very early on for very low resources, fantastic. Now, for the unlock events, they nerfed it 3 years ago, I don't remember. So you need less relics than you used to when I first did it, so relic 1 across the board is usually fine. Generally speaking, if you are hell-bent on undersizing for P4, I would probably go B1 at 3, B2 at 3, Jordica at 1, Magna at 12, Asajj at 12. Zeta's on B1, Jordica and B2 are essential. They're essential, essentially. And then Asajj just kind of who cares? As far as P2, another thing where you're heavily incentivized to highly relic these characters. 1, for ships. Kenobi and Tano or Ahsoka are fantastic for 1, his capital ship, but also just it's nice to have Ahsoka and her ship be strong enough. You don't really need to highly relic her. It's just something I did a long time ago to kind of put her in a standard operating procedure with the rest of my Galactic Republic, especially now that Datacrons have permeated the last year or so. Nice to have her at relic, call it 3. But you don't need to go too overboard. C-3PO, he adds relics every time a new character comes out that requires him to be higher and higher relics, so you can probably keep him at 12 until eventually one day he's required to be Relic 7 for your Jabba or your JML or your whatever. I can't even remember what teams are required for CLS at this point. Shock T at 7, I think, is just a straight-up JMK requirement, as well as GK at 8. And then Padme at 5. I mean, Padme, she loves being thick. She loves surviving. She loves being an STD team, sometimes difficult, fantastic early game defensive team. So we talked about the requirements. We talked about where they're good, where they're not good, and all that sort of good stuff. When should you farm gas and also his clones? Because his clones are not requirements, but they are indeed required for him, because without them, he's kind of useless. I generally say that players should start picking up gas kind of at 2 different points. Obviously, opening up with an early Padme is advisable simply because you can basically solo unlock Padme with Django, a little bit of new gun Ray at Gear 8 or whatever. But that unlock is incredibly easy to this day. Even with the Mace rework, they actually made it a little bit easier. A lot of people were giving me shit. I'm like, you changed the strategy, but it's still just as easy. So Padme is usually one of the first 3 or 4 teams that you're going to end up farming. I'm going to be honest, post CLS and probably post Double Revan is when we kind of want to full on go for gas. So we have our CLS, we have our Bounty Hunters, we have both of our Revan teams, we have our Padme. I think at that point, it's probably the right time to finish up that General Grievous squad. And that's not to say that you shouldn't farm General Grievous prior to that. Because if you want to farm up General Grievous and stick him at Relic 3, Relic 5, Relic 7, and have really weak droids alongside, I mean, you can still have kind of a suicide offensive team / defensive team where, you're either going to strip a ton of banners and get a bunch of AoEs off, or kill a team that maybe might be difficult for you, where you just need gas or General Grievous to go over and over and over again as his droids die and pop off AoEs. So you don't need to do the full gas investment before having that General Grievous, but generally speaking, General Grievous is kind of like that 6th, 7th team that you add with gas falling suit to finish up your core 8. So in an ideal world, your teams are probably looking something along the lines of, you have a full CLS squad, you have a full bounty hunter squad, whether it's Bosk, durability, recovery, or a tank or a snipe. It's probably the Bosk. So you have your CLS, you have your bounty hunters. Obviously, you're gonna have some sort of Vader. You might even have a low star, low gear EP Mara just for some TM to have an extra auxiliary team. You probably have a Piet Dark Trooper at gear 10, gear 11, maybe gear 12 to get a couple extra auxiliary offensive teams out of those Imperial Troopers. You likely have both Revan teams up and running with Malak at least being processed. Now, the debate between Malak versus Gas as far as Get One is concerned is a heated one. If you end up going Darth Revan, Jedi Knight Revan as like team 3, team 4, I would highly recommend dumping and getting that Malak up early and then kind of coming back later and finishing up Gas afterwards. But if you end up going Jedi Knight Revan and Darth Revan as team like 5, 6, a little bit later in the farms, and you're much closer to striking at Gas than you would be if you did them super early. I would say leave Malak at 5 stars and save that Get One, the 73,000 Get One currency or whatever it is that you're going to need to get your Gas up to 7 stars. Because unfortunately, he's kind of useless. He's kind of useless when he's not 7 stars. So it really just depends as far as the Get One currency is concerned. When you it's really just a matter of when you farm your Malak versus when you don't. If Malak comes a little bit earlier, you might be able to have enough time through raids and other means to recover and get that Get One currency. And it's been years. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm fairly confident there are other avenues to get Malak and Gas shards, whether it's crystals or some other currency. I remember many years ago them adding that, but I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I've had them both Relic 7 for such a long time that I honestly couldn't tell you without looking, which I might do here in a couple of minutes. I don't know why I just popped into a Gas battle. Neil, I'm actually going to explain to you why I popped into a Gas battle. What was I saying? I have a really bad habit, and let me know in the comment section if you totally agree with this. I have a really bad habit of, obviously, the content, the information is fantastic, but I don't offer a lot of stuff on the screen like Arnold will, where there'll be like B-roll footage and stuff for you to watch to kind of set your mind at ease and make it a better viewing experience. So while there will be top-notch information, it is a little bit boring. So I was like, oh, that's probably a good reason for me to come in. And I like how there's been 0 Droideka assists at this point. This is very bad RNG. Not like it's going to matter or anything. I'm like Relic 4 across the board, so who cares? What was I saying? Yeah, so I was like, oh, I should probably give them something to watch. That'd probably be good. And then I went in here, and now I'm trapped doing this battle instead of showing you the easy places to get Malak and Gas. So unbelievable professionalism from the APGAINS, the one and only. All right, so yeah, these are like the exact relics and mods and stuff that I did it the first time, which is why it's 1 star here. And it was incredibly difficult, and they nerfed it like many years ago, so now it's much easier. So let's actually do a little bit of looking and see where are the places that you can get Gas. So you can use him with Get One, obviously. You can do a little bit of the Mark II raid. You can do, and then I think there are 5, 10, 15 crystals. I wouldn't do this. I would kind of leave this for GAC locks about to happen, and you're like almost at 7 stars. I wouldn't do this if you're like almost at 6 stars, because if you're almost at 7 stars, you can relic him and he becomes a million times better. So if you're like 26 or you're 25 shards short or whatever like that, and GAC locks in a couple hours and you have the relic materials, maybe you bang these out, get him to 7 stars, relic him, and throw him in there so you can actually use him in GAC. That's probably the only time I'd do this. I would stick to these right here as that's kind of the best way to get them up and running. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I love you, and I'll see you later. Subscribe to the Patreon because there's tons of stuff to do there. Fantasy Football League, there's an unbelievable amount of value over there. I'm just going to go fuck myself. Bye-bye.